of a creature that was 6.5 to 7 feet tall.
The CIA ran secret mind control experiments.
It's a tale of a creature that's been seen by many, but believed by few.
And experts say there have been reported sightings of paranormal activity.
And there was this creature and it ran down this hill.
They say something was flying over their house and they have no idea what it was.
How the world's most powerful individuals are actually shape-shifting reptilians.
My scariest ghost hunting experience.
And good Tuesday evening. It is Paranormal IRL. I'm your host, JV Johnson. Thanks for being here, everybody, as we get warmed up for another great night of great discussion. I appreciate you all filing into all the chat rooms. Good to see so many friends coming into the chat rooms and saying hello. I was typing feverishly to say hello to everybody, but as the show gets started here, I don't have as much time, so I'll just do it verbally. Hello, everybody. Good to see you all, and thanks for being here. Remember, if you're a podcast listener, please share the podcast. It's amazing to me that the show gets downloaded something like 10,000 times per episode for the podcast version of the show. It's just a staggering number, and I really, really appreciate that support. I don't often get to address our podcast listeners in a live way or in any way for that matter other than just doing it like this, and I want to thank you all for doing that. There are a bunch of folks who have clicked on that support button in the podcast apps and have supported the program that way, and I want to thank them as well. In fact, there's a couple folks that have done a couple of those. Thank you for doing that. But tonight we're going to be talking about one of the most perplexing and frustrating phenomenon in the search for answers to paranormal questions. We have talked about Bigfoot many times on the program, had many different perspectives. And tonight we've got two filmmakers who have just completed a documentary. It's called A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. And we have Tobe Johnson and Brett Eichenberger joining us to talk about this film. Tobe is the author of the Owl Moon Lab books and also researcher of all things related to Bigfoot. He's got over a decade of research and his own experiences to talk about. He's dedicated his work to investigating the relationship of Sasquatch and the paranormal. Toby's the co-producer of a documentary, the one we mentioned, A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. It is a groundbreaking two-part documentary series that focuses on Sasquatch witness testimony. And Toby's come to the conclusion that Sasquatch is not only very real, but is far beyond what most would have you believe, which is, that quote is what I put into the title of tonight's show. We're going to be talking about that specifically. Brett Eichenberger is an award-winning filmmaker. He's got over 25 years of experience working in the film and video production industry. His work includes the feature films Light of Mine and Pretty Broken, in addition to commercials, short films, music videos, and documentary shorts. Filmmaking has taken Brett around the world, but he feels most at home in the outdoors of the Pacific Northwest, which is, of course, the epicenter of the Bigfoot phenomena. As a native Oregonian, Brett has been intrigued by Bigfoot since his childhood years. How could he not be? And this documentary has given him the opportunity to explore the topic in depth. We're very, very honored and pleased to have both Tobe and Brett with us. Guys, thanks for being here. Welcome to the program. I'm really anxious to talk about the documentary film and your experiences making it. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us, JV. Appreciate it. It's good to be here. And I got to say, first and foremost, that's the best intro we have seen. That was great.
I'm good at intros. I'll let you make the judgment on the rest of the show as we go on.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic. And I'm even talking about your graphics with the Bigfoot going by. And
cool.
The UFO, and then you popped up every place. Yeah, I loved it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate hearing that. I'm going to, with two guys on the show, it's, we got to kind of go back and forth to get a lot of questions in. So we're going to start firing away. And Tobe, I'm really anxious to understand how you got bitten by the Bigfoot bug, the curiosity that ultimately led you here, because obviously you didn't start here. You've been researching and searching for a while.
Well, since the mid-2000s in the little town of Thurston, Oregon, it started with a single trackway that my son found, and it ended up with doing conferences and live venues. I would do venues and bars, get people a couple IPAs and have them tell their Bigfoot stories once a month. And when these people would show up, they'd tell me stories that were incredible. A lot of times these stories would range from the simple to the roadside crossings to the extraordinary, where they were saying they were having multiple experiences. And these people that say they have these multiple experiences were the ones that I kept feeling as though I should talk to more. And so I ended up calling these people extended experiencers of Sasquatch interaction. They have backyard Bigfoot phenomena. Habituation is another term people use. And they have the stranger stuff going on by far. So that's where I spent most of the time, is chronicling that.
So was this like were these informal gatherings? Did you do a lecture series, or how did you pull this together? Because I've never heard that approach, and I find it very unique and interesting, in fact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty informal. So literally at a greasy spoon in the little town of Leesburg, Oregon, by a fish hatchery. And before we knew it, within a couple of months, people had this excitement about the fact that we're in Bigfoot country talking about something that they know a lot about. And yet it's super informal and not stuffy, and people can tell whatever version of their encounter they want. And but like I said, the extended experiencers kept pulling me aside and said, "Hey, I don't want to tell my story in front of these guys, but I'll tell you." And it was pretty strange. So that's how this whole Owl Moon Lab came to be, which is this book that tells the story of an extended experiencer living in a place, I would call it a power spot, where Sasquatch and all sorts of other things seem to happen almost on a daily basis.
Wow. Brett, I imagine that you were surrounded with lore, where you guys are, the Pacific Northwest, as I mentioned in the intro, kind of the epicenter for a lot of this activity, certainly a hot spot, if nothing else. How did you get introduced to this idea? You've been a filmmaker for a while. You probably haven't necessarily thought about making a Bigfoot documentary until you collaborated with Tobe. I don't know for sure, but did this Bigfoot thing, hibernate in you, to use a bit of a pun here, for a while before you got to the opportunity to make the documentary?
Yeah, it's been hibernating in me for about 44 years. So I decided early on I wanted to be a filmmaker. I mean, we're talking about the age of 6 when I first saw E.T. in the movie theaters. And that really kind of catapulted my interest into paranormal too. So when Tobe and I first met, we instantly connected because of our love of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And while other kids were out playing with their friends on BMXs in the early 80s, I was sitting there wearing out my VHS copy of Close Encounters. And even at the young age of 7 and or 8 years old, I'd watch the whole movie, rewind it, and watch again, and kept having these questions about, what else is there? What are these mysteries in the universe that we don't know? And frankly, I have no idea why I was attracted to it at such a young age, but I've always been interested in all things unseen. Bigfoot was at the top of the list because as a child, we would commute either to Mount Hood over the Cascades of Oregon or to the Oregon coast over the Coast Range Mountains, and you would hear the legends and the lore going back as far as I would remember. And so in 2012, both Jill and I, who Jill's the co-producer, is the producer and writer, we were able to get in with some of the influential Bigfoot researchers here in the state and region, and really started getting to know them. We went there just as curious individuals wanting to know more about the phenomenon. And it occurred to us years later, after we had maintained those relationships, that we had really everything we needed to finally do our Bigfoot documentary. And so with the onset of the pandemic, we jumped in a car and headed down to a Bigfoot conference that was being held in the woods in June of 2020. We started our interviews, and that's what led us ultimately to Tobe about, I'd say, 4 weeks later.
All right, so I got to ask you about the fascination with Close Encounters, because I think you said you were in your mid-40s. I think Close Encounters came out, 78? Is that right? Something around that?
78, yeah.
So you must have saw it later then. You must have saw it later, right?
Yeah, I was watching the director's cut or the special edition or one of the other four versions of it. But um, my dad was kind of a renegade, and he was able to get movies that weren't really out on VHS yet.
Oh, nice.
He was like connected to the bit torn of the early '80s, and he was a big sci-fi fan too. So he was into to all those movies. And as a kid, I went with him. You know what I mean? My parents didn't really police a lot of the stuff I watched. So I still recall going to Star Wars at the age of maybe 3.
Oh, wow.
I was born in '75, so maybe the age of 4. But Close Encounters is where I really started to, 'cause I knew my world a little bit better at that point in time, and so this goes throughout grade school. I think I first saw Close Encounters in maybe the third or fourth grade, and then it went on, and the fascination continues to this day.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to ask Toby the same question. Prior to getting involved in this particular project, what were your thoughts on Bigfoot? Opinion? Exist? Didn't exist? What were you thinking?
I had always leaned towards him existing, or to them existing, I should say, simply because I just heard about him all the time, and I felt like, especially with the Patterson Gimlin film, I was aware of that very early on because I was interested. I check out books at the elementary school library, and you'd see photos and stuff, and so I didn't question it. I don't think. I was never really a skeptic because I think I was so involved in the paranormal at such a young age, that it's just always been kind of a part of my life. That's not to say I don't question many things. I think that's extremely important. Ultimately, I am looking for the truth. I think that we're all looking for the truth. But, I would bet my life on Bigfoot being real. I think it's 100%, absolutely. And what's cool about Bigfoot is I think there is so much more there than just a gigantic bunch of hairy beasts wandering the forests of North America.
And Toby, you obviously you talked about having these informal gatherings where you allowed people to tell their stories, talk about their Bigfoot encounters. First of all, when people were telling these stories, did you see any common threads in their emotions? Were people afraid not to tell them? Because obviously there's a stigma attached with telling stories like this many times. But just in general, did they experience some fear when they told these stories? Or were they excited about it? What was the general attitude of the storytellers? And not from the documentary, but from this, your lecture experience.
They wanted to take you to the area. They wanted to find a confidant that they could have a repeat experience, generally speaking. They're willing to take you to the area, especially these people that were habituators or extended experiencers, and see what they've collected over the years. And when all those things had a cohesion to them, and there were these parallels of evidence of people that lived sometimes blocks apart, miles apart, states apart, and they're all saying this private thing that they're more than other people are saying they are. They have a seemingly hive mind mentality, meaning that what one knows, they all know, and that they can follow you from place to place. Doesn't really matter how many times you move, you kind of are on their direct caller line. And there's a lot more to that, but that got me extremely interested, especially since I was into the weird already.
Yeah. Now, same question I gave Brett. If you rewind back to the point where you started really thinking about this stuff, not necessarily the film, but just the phenomenon itself, did you have any preconceived notions? Were you a believer at that point?
Brett.
I'm sorry. No, I asked Brett. No, I'm asking Toby the same question I asked Brett. I'm sorry if I misspoke there. Did you hear the question, Toby?
I'm confused who you're asking a question to.
I'm asking you. I said I'd ask this question to Brett earlier, so I'm asking you.
All right, go ahead. Re-ask the question again.
Yeah, no. Rewind to the point where you really started thinking about this stuff seriously. Did you have any preconceived notions? Were you a believer at that time? Were you a skeptic? Or were you just curious?
Honestly, looking back, it was more about the Bermuda Triangle. That's what I remember hearing the most about during the 80s, were these Time Life magazine and books about the psychic energy and the riveting Loch Ness Monster. And Bigfoot fit on that category, and all the school book shelves. It was just right between all these subject matters. So I thought all that stuff was super interesting and probably real too, because they seemed just as credible by witness testimony. So I took it at face value that eventually something's going to happen. So I never really questioned it, but I never really, I didn't have any friends that really followed my interest with it. So it was just kind of a thing I did at home.
Let's talk about the point at which you decided to make a film. Now, Toby, you're the producer. I'm just trying to make sure I understand the roles here.
Just a lowly co-producer, Jamie.
I don't know about lowly, but projects like this are projects of passion, of course. I know enough filmmakers, particularly when it gets into documentary filmmaking. They're projects of passion, and they're almost a quest unto themselves to get some kind of answers. Talk to me, Toby, about how you got started with this particular project.
It came down to, I believe, a message board or a phone call. And at that point, I was living already on the property studying this place I call the Al Moon Lab with the Adams family, believe it or not. That's their names. And we were researching full time with Cindy and Daryl Adams at their house. Daryl recently retired. And Brett and Jill were looking for a story like ours, which made extraordinary claims that we have this overlapping Sasquatch phenomena. And so we sat down with them and started to tell them our story. And, the things have taken off for them since that time, of course. But yeah, that's initially how it started.
And Brett, you entered this project ready to make a film. You've had a bunch of films under your belt already, some I guess they wouldn't be considered documentaries. You did some documentary shorts. You saw this project. What lit your eyes up about it?
I don't even know where to begin. Everything lit our eyes up about it. I think the fundamental question that we have is, if there's something out there that's humanoid, that's a cousin of ours, or even deeper than that, we should know about it. We should know about it for a variety of reasons. One reason is that we can learn from them and they can learn from us. Now, with that being said, this isn't something that we want to do to exploit them, and I have a firm belief about that. I believe that they most likely want alone. I'm certain that many of them want to be left alone, but I'm certain that some of them don't necessarily want to be alone. I think that they have reached out to certain individuals on purpose to maintain a communication with humans. And so I think that was a huge part about it, especially with all the UFO stuff that's going on right now. And, people are looking to the skies to see our cousins or whatever these aliens might be, or whatever this technology might be, time travelers, you name it. And I thought, you know what, we're looking to the sky, but we should be looking into the trees. And, I would challenge anybody to drive through the Pacific Northwest, through the Cascades, the Oregon Coast Range, or anything, and see further than about 25 feet into the forest. We talk about this in the documentary about how pilots fly over the woods and they just get disorientated because it's a carpet, it's thick. And I think it's foolish for somebody to claim that if in fact Bigfoot is real, that it would have been discovered by now. I tell you what, buddy, get in a plane, fly out of Portland, fly all the way up to about the tip of Alaska, and you're going to be flying over forest the entire way. So there's a lot of questions to be answered or try and answer. And I think even in turn, we've actually come up with a lot more questions than answers.
Yeah, Brett, you make a really good point there, because most of us only know the areas around us from the roads we drive on. And I found this out as a snowmobiler. I started taking, the snowmobile trails, and I'd end up in places that looked very unfamiliar to me. And then I realized, 20 feet away, there's a road I'm on all the time. But from this perspective, it's a very different view. So, and people lose sight of the fact that there is so much vastness between some of those roads. So your point about the amount of available, undeveloped, very thickly vegetated land, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, is very valid and gives, whether it's Bigfoot or some other type of creature that we haven't discovered yet, a lot of room to remain We'll say hidden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. 70% of North America is untouched by man. That's a big number. So, I mean, the possibilities of something being out there are huge. However, the kink in that, if you will, is that these things know how to hide. They understand. I don't know whether they understand the fundamentals of what a camera does, or they hear the electronics of a camera, but they are intelligent enough to know what one is and how to avoid it. And that's not always true. Sometimes people get pictures of them. Patterson Gimlin obviously is a very famous example of that, and that's being proven more and more real as technology assesses it. So, there's and then we get into the paranormal realm, which is going to be chapter 2. I mean, are these things able to cloak? Are they able to disappear? Are they, what other sort of abilities do they have that we don't fully understand?
Yeah, Toby, there have been a lot of documentaries and attempts at documentaries. Some of them have been highly and widely discredited, and I'm not going to name names. What makes your film different?
Well, it's a narrative about the witness, and it's done in such a poetic way that it brings audiences to tears. I don't know too many Bigfoot documentaries that are able to do that, and it steers the hour and 44 minutes in such a way that most people are just gobsmacked at what they just saw. It belongs on an IMAX screen. It, in fact, almost was pitched as such, but it's a mind-blowing cinematic masterpiece in so many ways that I was just, it was a pleasure being a part of it just to watch how they work. But then when you get an idea of, getting these voices out there that have never talked about the psychological ramifications, or people that have dealt with this privately maybe for years, and they're connected now through these friendships like me and Daryl are. It's almost like watching two guys at the VA talking about, the Battle of the Bulge or something like that. Like these people are war buddies now, and it's always humbling to wander into other war buddies, and that's something that they captured here. So I was touched by that and a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, if to use that analogy, veterans have an instant connection with one another when they begin talking, as though they've been friends for a lifetime, just because of that shared experience. You found the same to be true with Bigfoot experiencers?
There is, because, yeah. Go ahead, Brett.
Oh, I was just going to elaborate on the emotional impact and why that's what really sets us apart, I believe, from other documentaries. Is we went into this going, there's nothing out there right now that talks about the emotional impact of seeing something that doesn't exist in real life, and there's an emotional impact that's equivalent to post-traumatic stress disorder. Much like Roy Neary in Close Encounters of the Third Kind has this profound experience in his truck at a railroad stop with a UFO lifting up and getting the sunburn, so on and so forth. These people have, and that lasted, 30 seconds, maybe a minute.
Right.
The people that have had, sorry about that, it goes my light. The people that have had experiences with Bigfoot are much the same way. It changes them permanently. And so you have to ask yourself, if somebody's out in the woods and they see a 9-foot tall, let me rephrase that. If somebody's out in the woods and they see a bear, they come home and they're excited about seeing a bear and they go back to work and everything's fine. Well, there's folks out there, hunters that have been hunting since the age of 12, 13 years old. They're now in their 40s. They see a Bigfoot. They lock eyes with the Bigfoot. They have an emotional connection with the Bigfoot, and they're done. That's it. The love of their life, their passion of their life of hunting is done. They will not go back into the woods. So, I mean, the skeptics out there will be like, yeah, it could have been something else. No, it's not. It's just not. They have had a traumatic experience that has rocked them to the core. And we wanted to address that. So we interviewed a psychologist, a Yale-educated psychologist, and a hypnotherapist, and they go into great detail about how the brain works, how it plays back, how we protect ourselves when we see something we can't explain or we see something that we have a hard time dealing with. And that really becomes kind of the reinforcement, if you will, to a lot of these eyewitness sightings.
Do you guys mind if I play the trailer? for the film?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, it's about 2 minutes long. So here we go.
I'm looking at this giant figure, huge, 8 feet tall, non-human gait. I'm trying to classify what this thing is, but it's not real. And I know what it is, but what it is not real.
The arms of these things went well below their knees, unbelievably long arms.
When I looked up, there was a young male looking at me.
Something's going around my tent. It stops behind me, and then contact.
We tried. We really tried to get pictures, but these things seem to outfox us.
Something is leaving footprints.
As you start utilizing the data and you start seeing the data tell the story, the whole story unfolds right before your eyes.
The way it pulled its little one, its young behind it with its arm. I mean, I can't even put it in words. It was so unreal.
Knowing about them, they seemed too intelligent for me to consider them as something you could go out and hunt like an animal.
That is, whoa.
So these were brought here.
I had one client talk about how muscular it was and how broad its shoulders were and how it's just was in awe of this incredibly majestic creature.
You will always have that with you. You will always remember that moment.
When he was walking away, I called out to him, "You're the most beautiful creature in the world. Please don't go."
I was that person. I did not believe. I just thought it was a myth.
Open up your minds because they're out there.
First of all, let me just say it's. I haven't had a chance to see the film, but just the trailer alone illustrates, Toby, how beautifully shot this was and how well produced it is. So kudos on that. But the other thing I find very striking, in just the few clips you have in the trailer there, if you look into the eyes of the people telling their stories, there is a genuineness to those stories. You can see and you guys had to capture that. I'm sure as you were sitting there listening to the stories, Toby, you were feeling more emotion than we can even see just in the eyes.
Well, I wasn't there for a lot of the filming. I helped set up some of the interviews and the witnesses that spoke on camera. But for the most part, I work a full-time job and I'm a struggling artist like the rest of the people in Washington. So for me, it was, I was always an earshot away from a phone call from Brett and Jill. But, having lived that story myself and the strangeness that occurred, we were happy to meet people, as far as having these shared experiences together.
Yeah, Brett, same question. I mean, as you were filming these folks, you must have felt that emotion that was clearly visible in their faces and their eyes from what we just saw.
Oh yeah, the emotion was thick in the room. There isn't a single person on camera that didn't have an emotional response at some point or another. And not every single person in this film has had a Bigfoot sighting, but they have had some sort of an experience or another, whether it's been a sound or, Stan Avery is kind of the town collector, if you will. He's a plumber in Bandon, Oregon. And so people, he's like a confidant. People tell them his stories, and even he had emotional responses. So, there were many, 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 many times we interviewed, I think, close to 40 people. There were many times where we would get choked up as filmmakers. We would need to pause. We would need to give them a moment. And what was so great for us as filmmakers is everybody was extremely comfortable sharing their story. And, it's a challenge to look into a camera lens and tell your story. It's not easy. And these folks did such a wonderful job. And, it was easier for some folks than it was for others. There was an individual, Mark Parker, who was the hunter I was talking about earlier. And he was at first reluctant to go on camera. But once he got up there, got some deep breaths and got back into his story, he was able to really go back to that time and place. And we were able to capture that. And I know the audience feels it.
Did you have any of these experiencers, whether they actually had a direct encounter or maybe they just came across some other type of evidence, footprints or otherwise, and we're talking about it. Do you have any of them say, okay, first you got to tell me, you're going to make me look like a fool if I tell you my story? Did you have any of that, Brett?
No. We did talk about that a little bit, going back to Mark real quick. He wasn't sure he even wanted to tell his spouse. Because he was afraid of what she would think. And I think he waited maybe a week before he told her. So I don't know that, and part of the advantage that we have, I think, to a certain extent, and coming from the narrative side of filmmaking, is that we understand the vulnerability of actors and how to work with actors and how to make them feel comfortable on camera, because it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, many actors in the feature film business are, believe it or not, introverts. And they're very shy people. It's when they get in front of the camera, they feel like they can be somebody else, is when they feel like they can be out in the open. And we didn't start rolling cameras until we were ready. So a lot of the times as we're setting up lights and cameras and stuff, we're having small talk. We really want to get to know these people, so we target the questions correctly, so we get a sense of who they are. This isn't just a story of a sighting. This is a real life emotional human experience. And that's the importance of this movie.
Toby, a lot of this comes from personal experiences you have had as well, right? You had your own experiences as it relates to this.
I did. I chased it down. I called myself an ambulance chaser. That means I followed up on latent Bigfoot sightings, spending several years doing that. And I found out it was a whole lot easier embracing them coming to you. Well, how do you do that? Well, you wait at an extended experiencer's house and listen to what they say happens. As unbelievable as that sounds, these repeat experiences at people's locations or their property or their acreage or their business is probably way more common than people know. I think it happens in nuances, and if you feed it, then it starts to amp up a little bit. And I maybe mean that literally, maybe I mean that figuratively, but if you feed the phenomena, pay attention to it, or literally leave out snacks, things seem to amp up in, locations, hot spots around that given area. So we just locked eyes with this phenomena. The witness was, like I said, recently retired, and he had nothing but time on his hand, and I was freshly divorced. And so we just hung out for the period of, well, we still hang out, but there was a time when we recorded over 1,400 hours worth of audio and did review over that audio. And we knew that we had something coming to the house because you could plainly hear it arriving. And then, magnificent displays of giant greasy handprints and various locations, hair, these giant knee impressions, footprints, an eventual sighting, strange gifts, animal mutilations. And all these things are just the tip of the spear when it comes to strangeness. And that's why there had to be a part 2.
So don't forget the blackberry sneeze too.
Oh, yeah, he's referring to yeah. In fact, I'm in the process here. After I got a divorce, I bought a 17-foot long Rainier Dutchman trailer, pulled it on the property, and said, I'm going to research Bigfoot finally, the way it's supposed to be. I've got all this free time. And there was a moment where we were recording there, and I was working a strange graveyard shift, and we'd gotten used to, like I said, reviewing something arriving and leaving, and then leaving traces of itself. I got home around 11 o'clock on a summer day, and underneath the awning, which was exposed because it was hot, underneath the awning was my recorder sitting in the rail, and these blackberries that were coming out from underneath the awning and going out to the forest. And we'd gotten used to hearing stuff out that way. And so just like a trail of breadcrumbs, I followed it out to the tree line. I was like, well, dummy, go grab the recorder. And so I was running all night. And so I'm listening to the recorder, and I hear this magnificent sound of something masticating, walking on the gravel, and then this sneeze, this juicy, wet sneeze. And I go back to the awning, and I look up, and about 7.5 feet up is this about 12-inch blackberry stain that's dripping, just dried up blackberry seeds and spit. Now, why didn't I collect it as a DNA sample? I don't know. I mean, you get so excited about this stuff. I don't care who you are. You need other people around you to remind you, what you should do. But I don't know what kind of person would hoax something like that.
Yeah. Brett, I mean, that's part of the problem with this particular phenomenon. There are so many people that have had experiences, and then you say, well, you had your phone. Did you get a picture? But they happen in a flash, and you don't always think. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a situation where and it hasn't been a Bigfoot encounter, which would be absolutely, striking and startling. But I've been in a situation where after the fact, I said, why the heck didn't I just take a picture of that? Whether it was a car hitting something or whatever, you just don't think that quickly. At least I don't. But I think that's probably pretty common, Brett.
It's extremely common. We're humans first, photographers second, sometimes photographers third and fourth, because our primordial instincts kick in and we're concerned about our safety. We're seeing something that we need to digest. So the first inclination is not to always pull out your phone and take a picture. And the other thing about that too is you don't want to miss it. If you pull out your phone and you look down and you're fiddling with something, it's going to be gone. Right. It's gone in a flash of beauty. And this is true with any form of wildlife. I mean, you show me some amateurs out there that have gotten National Geographic type photos of cougars or wolverines or anything else that's rare in the wild. What people don't really know is that in order to get those types of photos, there's guys out in blinds for sometimes weeks at a time. There's a famous story about a guy trying to capture a snow leopard, one of the most rare animals on the face of the planet. He was up in the Pakistani mountains for 6 weeks, every day in a blind, waiting for something to come by. And on the very last day, as he's about to pack up, sure enough, here comes a snow leopard. And this phenomenon tends to work in much the same way. And you kind of have to ask yourself about that snow leopard. Is there a coincidence there? Or was that particular guy being played? Same thing with the Bigfoot. Do they know that we have the capability of taking pictures of them and, purposely avoid us? Chad and Austin that are in our documentary would say so. They had cameras. They specifically went out into the wilderness and went out to record survival videos. And they had a campsite about maybe 100, 150 feet up from a lake. It was a little bit of a steep climb. And they left their cameras up there, went down to the lake to go fishing. And sure enough, here's a Bigfoot. And it's juvenile child sitting there on a log. And they had no way of taking photos of it. And Chad and Austin both believe that had they'd had a camera in their hand, they never would have that sighting. So I know the skeptics out there are probably going, I don't know. But, this happens on and on and on and on again.
Yeah. Toby, as you're collecting the stories, putting the film together, doing all of this work and the other research that you did leading up to the film, what type of things surprised you? Did any of the stories strike you as being completely out of something that you had considered previously? Or is there anything else in this process that just surprised you about the whole thing?
Sure. There's some surprises all over the place in this doc. One I'll talk about is regarding the hypnotherapist, Doug Meacham. And I've seen his work before on videotape. He worked with someone who had a regression over a Bigfoot and a Men in Black scenario. It's about an hour-and-a-half session, if I recall. And seeing him explain what he was performing is quite a thing. I mean, it's literally someone who has a memory that's trapped in their subconscious somewhere that they can't unlock it, and they need somebody can bring it out in a way that's almost like putting in a VHS tape, and you can fast forward, rewind, pause, stop, slow-mo, all of these memories here, and to have him explain that in a way that came across as credible, because I believe he is credible, and I believe this practice is credible. I wonder what benefits would come of me or Daryl utilizing this, because I don't know if we have all our memories in perfect order over this.
Yeah. One of the things, Brett, that you have said, or at least it's listening here and some of the ideas that that you like to discuss is the idea that if someone was to harm a Bigfoot, that should be a crime. Is that something that you believe?
Yeah, excuse me, absolutely. And I think that there are many people that would agree with me. These things are too human-like for us to be, uh, killing one, murdering one, whatever you want to call it, in the name of science. And I think that the time is going to come at some point or another that we're going to find one. I don't want to go down another rabbit hole of government conspiracy theories, but we've got a very credible source in our documentary that talks about how the government does have the bodies. There's many eyewitnesses to the government with evacuating Bigfoot bodies from Mount St. Helens natural disaster area before rescue teams could get in there. That was a military operation. So yeah, I don't think that it really solves anything. There has been some laws that have been passed in Oregon. There's a law that was passed in, I believe, Skamania County that makes it a crime to kill a Bigfoot. They were having so many Bigfoot sightings in Skamania County that they got together and they said, you know what, we should make this a law. We should protect these things. And the other thing too is it protects other humans. Because the last thing we need are a bunch of, like Stan Avery says in our film, primates out hunting more primates. So I think there's a lot of really good reasons for it. And these aren't things we want to make mad.
Yeah,
either.
I actually had that article, and that's one reason I introduced this question, because I was going to ask you what you thought about it. You just referenced it. This article showed up, I guess, a day ago. It's illegal to kill Bigfoot in Skamania County, Washington. One of the things I thought was interesting about this article, though, it says the ordinance rests on evidence which it says continues to accumulate regarding the possible existence within Skamania County of a nocturnal primate mammal. It describes Bigfoot or Sasquatch as, quote, an ape-like creature of subspecies of Homo sapiens. I don't like the picture they used here because it almost makes it seem a little comical. However, it seems like more and more communities, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, are starting to recognize this, Toby, as though they're starting to say, okay, all right, something's out there, and we either have to protect it or we've got to start codifying something in relation to this creature. Is that a bit of a vindication for you, for some of these people who've had experiences who maybe haven't been believed in the past?
Unfortunately, I think a lot of it is tongue-in-cheek. It reminds me a little bit of, what happened in Roswell after the mayor went out and then had to eat crow, not Roswell, but in Arizona after the Phoenix Lights. And these government bodies kind of insert themselves in the conversation because it is either topical, it gets eyeballs looking at them. I know some of these things have been done for like their grandkids, as far as like adding faith to, their grandkids' wishes or something to that effect. So I don't know what the legitimacy of something like that is, but if you look at what's going on right now with soft disclosure over the UFOs, we can't be too far behind.
Right.
There's just a lot that can be taken away from Bigfoot research regarding what's going on with the UFO researchers. We're so far behind them. And I think that we have combined interest. I don't know if the UFO people believe that, but there's a lot of cross-pollination going on with sightings.
Yeah, and something that Brett brought up just a minute ago, Toby, I want your opinion on it. A lot of the people, particularly heavy skeptics, will say, well, why haven't we discovered a body or bones, some kind of physical evidence in that regard? If they're living creatures, they have to die at some point, and we should be able to find some kind of evidence. Do you have an opinion on that, or did you get opinions during the process of making the documentary on that you want to share?
Mm-hmm. It's weird, isn't it? It's pretty weird. And, the lack of evidence seems to be evidence for something else going on. That's how I look at it. Something else must be going on. And like our buddy Rich Germeau, who's in the film, said, he goes, they're not coming to you asking questions. They may want some evidence, but they're not grilling you. They know what's going on. And however they dispose or wherever the bones go to eventually, I've heard people say that they bury them under trees. I don't think that this is just the forest being, super productive. I know that it can do I know what the forest can do to a corpse, but it doesn't seem to get rid of bones that quick. And you find bear skulls, you find rare animal skulls, and you just don't find giant hybrid monkey skulls out in the forest. It hasn't really happened, not that I know.
So you said the lack of evidence is evidence that something else is going on. Do you mean something like an alien connection, an interdimensional aspect to this? Is that what you meant, or something else?
Well, yeah, our buddy who's in the film, Ron Moorhead, talks a lot about quantum
Ron. I've had Ron on the show
and,
before, yeah.
Right. So, Ron is a bit of a mentor for me. I built giant Bigfoots for him in the past, and they're over here in museums in Forks, Washington now. So Ron's kind of a friend of the family here for Brett and myself and my girlfriend. And Ron told me early on, he just like, eventually I'm going to have to start talking about the weird stuff because people won't shut up about it. And him and Scott Nelson had a pact. The cryptolinguist that is working on the sounds for Ron, they had a pact that they were not going to talk about the crazy stuff when they went on the lecture circuit. And then finally, over a couple of beers, it's just like, we can't have this pact anymore. It's kind of like hurting us. Like we can't speak freely. And so very strange stuff have happened in the high Sierras to not only Ron, but just the amount of what the Hoopa have said about that area and the work of David Paulides and our own experiences in the Redwoods in Southern Oregon. So there's some strange stuff that happen when you're around Bigfoot, and I don't think we're ever going to fully understand it. And that's okay with me. I love a good mystery. I hope I never find a Bigfoot skull, because then it will just seem more physical to me and solvable. So I'm not in it for that.
Yeah. Brett, there's a question here. You kind of touched on it before, but in the chat room, a bunch of questions flowing through. I just happened to catch one quickly. Steph in our chat wants to know if you think that Bigfoot or Sasquatch can hear or sense. She says the frequency of cameras, but I'm assuming the electronic noise that a camera might make, or maybe even other equipment, not just cameras.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my theory, is that they can hear the frequency of cameras. And if we remember back to when we were children, children can hear higher frequencies than adults. We lose that ability as we age. And, I remember as a child walking into a room and hearing the buzz or the whir of a TV, that high pitched sound. And there's places that they'll use that as a deterrent to keep kids from hanging out at 7-Elevens. They'll play a high pitched sound that adults don't hear when they go in and out for their Slurpees. So I think that absolutely. I mean, the other point about that too is that human beings can only perceive 1% of the visible light spectrum. So we're not seeing we're blind basically to 99% of the light wave spectrum. And so I think that's very much the case with audio. Now, I'm no expert, but that's my theory.
I have to share a quick story based on what you just said. So my son, he was in his 20s now. He was building this computer setup for gaming, and he needed a couple extra monitors. He said, "Dad, do you have any extra monitors? I got a ton of extra equipment." So I said, "Yeah, here you go." And he set them up. And he's like, "How the hell did you use these monitors? This makes this high-pitched noise. I can't stand it." And he brings the monitor back to me. I plug it in. I don't hear anything. I heard nothing, but he could hear the high-pitched noise from the monitor and couldn't use it. It was so bad, which I felt was a bit comical. I'm not saying I'm old. I'm not going to admit to that. I'm older, not old. Anyway, so we're getting close to the end of our time here. I need to ask both of you kind of the follow-up to one of the first questions I asked you. Toby, after making this film, what changed about your perception or your ideas, your concept, or your beliefs as it relates to Bigfoot?
Well, I thought I could judge character of witnesses. And, I watch a lot of these YouTube channels and follow up on other witness testimony. And I thought I was really good at reading body language. And I don't think I'm that good at it. I was, my girlfriend felt the same way. And I almost feel like I need to start over again, understanding witness body language. I thought I had that honed in, but, I have to eat crow with that. So that's been a strange one. And then, of course, I've talked a little bit about this, is the connection with megalithic structures being in a lot of Bigfoot areas, or what I would call power spots. That's something unexpected. And, we'll see where that leads for maybe a next book or something.
Yeah, Brett, same question. You had a starting point, you make the film. How did your ending point change from your starting point in your ideas, beliefs, thoughts on the Sasquatch phenomenon?
That's a great question, and there's a ton of answers. I mean, my thought process has changed considerably from the beginning, and it continues to change. What I'm really looking for is I'm looking for a scientific explanation for all of this, and I believe that just like Ron Moorhead, I'm a huge believer in his book, The Quantum Bigfoot, and I really believe that there is a science explanation that lies in quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and physicists are looking at how strange molecules behave and how they can behave. And I think that the answer to a lot of this phenomenon lies in that arena, because Newtonian science, frankly, in my opinion, is outdated. It isn't working. It isn't helping. I think people keep falling back on it. It's what now, 600 some odd years old. But quantum physics does fill in a lot of those blanks, because quantum physics talks about parallel universes and different dimensions, so on and so forth. So getting into that aspect of it was really interesting. I thought this was going to be more of a wild goose chase, looking for, the big guy, if you will, and some strangeness, but it's turned into a little bit of a science lesson on top of it.
Toby, the documentary is in two parts, right? Why two parts?
Two parts because of the amount of hours of footage that they had for the original cut. And then it's only fair to do it because it's a bifurcated phenomenon where people think flesh and blood is the only answer. And then you have this other category that I fit into is there's this question mark about what's going on. And so that's the way it needed to be done for it to be an honest and pure film.
All right. Tell me where people can see the film. I believe it was available as of May 31st, so it's been out like a week. Is that right? Where I don't care.
Yeah, it's been out.
Go ahead,
Brett.
Today. Yeah, go ahead. Where can people see it?
Yeah, it's so they can see it. It's also worldwide. I don't know the exact countries right now, but I know they can see it in the UK, for instance. It's on iTunes in Canada. But it's Amazon, Google Play, Vudu, iTunes. I believe the Microsoft Store / Xbox has it. Tobe, am I forgetting anything?
Oh,
you can
boy.
find it.
I think it's on
YouTube. You can rent it on YouTube.
Telemundo.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
No, not yet. Not yet. But it is everywhere. It's not hard to find. A lot of people have asked us if we're moving to, a Netflix or a subscription-based service. And my answer to that right now is we're not sure. Typically, new releases kind of hang out in the rental department before being moved to a Tubi or something that's ad supported. So that might be a little while before that happens. But I'll tell you what, I feel like we packed in a lot of value for $4.99 for a rental. So in fact, we've had many people tell us they've watched it twice. So, and I think you can watch it as many times as you want in 48 hours. So I would encourage you to rent it.
Toby, is this the end of the quest or the beginning of the quest for you?
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll see what happens with the state of the world right now. I hope it's not the end of the quest. Not on my own accord. So no, never the end.
Are there any projects in the works that you want to talk about? I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but anything else that have you set your sights on something else? I guess.
I'm curious about these spaces in between that quantum physics describe, and how many people have accessed them.
Nice. Brett, you've got other work. I'm sure you'd like to mention where people might be able to see some of the other stuff you do as well.
Yeah, so we've got a film people might enjoy called Light of Mine. It's kind of a slow burner, but it's about a photographer who's losing his eyesight. And so he goes to Yellowstone to photograph it before he goes blind. And that was a film that we made about 10 years ago. I'm losing track of time. But anyways, that's on Amazon. We did another film called Pretty Broken, which is dramedy about a young woman whose father goes missing in the Himalayas, and she's determined to bring him home. Now, none of these have anything to do with the paranormal and or Bigfoot. These are entirely different films, but I think they're a bit different than the regular stuff that's out there that people might enjoy. They can check those out, and again, all the other platforms I just mentioned that Bigfoot Revealed is on, or Flash of Beauty is on. And the one of the things I do want to mention real quick is we have a Kickstarter campaign going on right now to finish our second film. A Flash of Beauty was self-funded. We in the middle of the pandemic, we scraped up some savings and put the movie together. And so now we're asking for just a little bit of help in order to get the second chapter finished. Like Tobe said, we have most of it shot, but there's still some traveling that we need to do, possibly a return trip to Alaska. So that you can find on Kickstarter if you type in A Flash of Beauty. And any help is appreciated.
Toby, the Owl Moon Lab, what's that? What can people find if they seek that out?
Sure. It's an interactive story. So think about, almost like a choose your own adventure book where you read through my encounter story in the strange town of Cottage Grove. And you can scan your phone over these QR codes that take you directly to that chapter where the audio or the video was captured.
Nice. And you've got a website as well. Let's see, what is it here? Bigfootdoc.com. People can go there. Will that have links to where they can see the film and a little more information about what's going on?
Yeah, we got links, we got coffee mugs, we got trucker hats, we got hoodies, we got t-shirts.
Nice.
So you can wear the film while watching the film. So
awesome.
I don't think we have socks, but if anyone wants any, they can let us know. So yeah, head on over.
Awesome. Guys, thanks so much for being here, and best of luck with this particular project, the upcoming projects, and I appreciate your time here tonight. Really, really informative. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, JV.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So again, bigfootdoc.com if you want more information. And of course, as you heard, there's a number of places you can see the documentary. It's a documentary in 2 parts. So be aware of that as well. But as you saw in the trailer, it's just really beautifully shot. And the stories that are being shared are obviously very, very heartfelt as well. And you can see it in the folks' eyes, which is what struck me right away when I saw that trailer. So take time and check it out. Again, the website is bigfootdoc.com. All right, so let's do a couple trivia questions. By the way, there is an 800-pound gorilla in the room that I need to address here. Yes, I got a haircut. I'm not saying it's a good one, but I did get one. And I'd been complaining for a long time about how long my hair was. So I finally got over myself and went and got it, because you know how much I hate to go get my hair cut. Just absolutely hate it. But it was so long and in my face that I had to do it. So again, I'm not proud of the haircut, but it is shorter. So that's not the 800-pound gorilla you guys were talking about? Oh, that one. Yeah, okay. So as you know, for the last couple of months, I've had a co-host on the program, and he's not here tonight. And you're wondering why Britt isn't here tonight. Well, Britt has decided that he is needs to spend his time doing some other things. So he will not be co-hosting the program with me any longer. So it brings the program back to what I was doing prior to the last 2 months, which was hosting it alone, and I'm perfectly okay with that. We'll miss Brett and his shenanigans. However, we wish him luck too. We hope he's successful in his other projects. So good luck. Anyway, let's do a couple trivia questions, and we'll call it a night. I think it's late for everybody, so let's do that. Is everybody ready for some trivia? I am. All right. Here we go. Question number 1. Who wrote The House on Mango Street, which is a celebrated coming-of-age novel about a Mexican-American girl named Esperanza Cordero growing up in Chicago? Who wrote The House on Mango Street, a celebrated coming-of-age novel about a Mexican-American girl named Esperanza Cordero growing up in Chicago? I don't know. I've never even heard of that book. I have no idea what that is. Hey, it's Samo. Paskin loves everything Bigfoot. Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, this is a great story. These guys did a great job with their film. And I have not seen it in preparation for this, but I'm going to get a chance to watch it after the fact. And I'm looking forward to doing that. I've seen a lot of Bigfoot documentaries, and there's been a lot of hastily thrown together Bigfoot documentaries. This is not one of them, from what I can tell. This looks really, really thought through well, and the interviews are very genuine. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, it is a hard question. I don't know. I don't pick them. They're just on the trivia question of the day calendar here, which, by the way, we're still in August of 2021. That's how far behind we are. All right, final asking of the question: who wrote The House on Mango Street, a celebrated coming-of-age novel about a Mexican-American girl named Esperanza Cordero growing up in Chicago? Who wrote that? Let's see, what do we have here? No clue. Scooter with all of her clothes off. Thank you, Scooter. Judy Blume. Rita Moreno. You don't know, but you wonder if it's the sequel to Esperanza Rising? Oh, I don't know. Yeah, if you want to follow Britt, look for his lawnmower racing thing, whatever it is. I don't even know. I'm not really that interested in it. Okay, so the answer to the question is, here we go. Sandra Cisneros. I have no idea who that is. The House on Mango Street was her first novel, but she went on to publish several other titles, including a short story collection, Woman Hollering... Can't read this. Woman Hollering Creek and other stories. I don't know. I don't even know. Let's go to the next question, because that one was horrible. Here we go. Which beloved animated TV show tells the story of a boy named Aang who must bring peace to a fantasy world on the brink of destruction? Which beloved animated TV show tells the story of a boy named Aang who must bring peace to a fantasy world on the brink of destruction? Who would that be? Oh, whoops, sorry about that. I don't know. These questions are really bad. We've got to find a better source of questions. I have a 2022 calendar over here. I haven't even opened it because we're still on August of 2021. Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't know if that's a real answer. Which beloved animated TV show tells the story of a boy named Aang who must bring peace to a fantasy world on the brink of destruction? Aang, A-A-N-G, A-A-N-G. What'd you think was a legit question, Toey? Last Airbender, Iowa agrees with Hoss. Okay. All right. Question is again, which beloved animated TV show tells the story of a boy named Aang who must bring peace to a fantasy world on the brink of destruction? I don't know about being a beloved TV show. I've never even heard. You guys are right. It's Avatar: The Last Airbender. I've never seen it. The show aired from 2005 to 2008. Can't be that beloved if it only lasted 3 years and nabbed an Emmy among other awards. Yikes. Yeah, again, how can it be so beloved if it was only on for, I guess that might be considered 4 years. It didn't last very long. Final question, guys. I asked if Britt moved on to pursue his porn career. Oh, yeah, maybe he did that too. Porn and lawnmower racing. Yeah. All right, final question. Here we go. What is the proper term used to describe someone who practices karate? What is the appropriate or the proper term used to describe someone who practices karate? Karate. Yeah, you got it, Fitty. It is Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm still doing the Independence Gang, Steph. I'm still doing the Independence Gang. I have to shuffle things because this show I'm doing in the afternoons now, this 1 p.m., it's called America's Lunchroom, is taking off. We had 100,000 viewers last weekend. We're getting about 20,000 views a day on it. So I'm putting more effort into that particular show versus the Independence Gang. And I need to find some help with the Independence Gang. You know, when I had a regular co-host, because I've got great fill-in co-hosts, but when I had a regular co-host, I could, some of the work could be done and I didn't have to do it. So I need to restructure that. I need to figure out how we do it. But I really enjoy that show because it gives me an opportunity to vent. I'm talking about the Independence Gang. America's Lunchroom, a little bit different approach. It's an attempt to be, not an attempt to be funny. It's an attempt to take a lighter look at this stuff and laugh a little bit during the middle of the day. So, the afternoon shows is really taking off. We're getting some great guest inquiries, people asking if they can be on. So anyway, what's the proper term used to describe someone who practices karate or karate, whichever you prefer? If you're Ross Geller, you'll say karate. Is it popular, Fiddy? I'm not doubting it is, but it can't be that popular if it only lasted a few years. I mean, South Park's on like 30 years. Now I call that popular. Or I call that beloved. What was the way they described it? Let's see. Thanks, Par 5. We try to have fun. The difficulty with America's Lunchroom is there isn't always funny stuff in the news. Sometimes you really have to stretch it to find something to laugh about. And sometimes we're serious about it, too. Sometimes you just have to be serious, which we allow ourselves that flexibility as well. Okay, what is the proper term used to describe someone who practices karate? I haven't seen anybody answer this with what format? I don't know. I'm just reading the question as it is. Somebody's actually said this, and I thought they were joking. Where is the answer that Kelsey said it. Karateka? I don't know how you pronounce that. Karateka, maybe? Karateka. For example, the karateka was highly trained. Karateka. Nice job, Kelsey. Must be you study karate. Yeah, that's right, Gina. A laugh is good for us. That's why we need to do it, because so much of the news is depressing. We want to laugh. We want to smile, have a little bit of fun. That's what it's about. All right, that's going to do it for tonight, guys. Thanks for being here. Again, thank you to our two guests, Toby Johnson and Brett Eichenberger. It was really, really great to have them on. Their film is called, again, I want to make sure I get it right. It is A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. And their website is bigfootdoc.com. Have a great night, and we will see you tomorrow if you check in at 1 o'clock for the America's Lunchroom. And that is primarily, we do that on the Independence Gang Foxhole channel, plus a bunch of Getter channels, including mine. And there's some other places. We're really just kind of splashing it everywhere at this point. And since the Independence Gang YouTube channel has been completely deleted by YouTube, it is gone, no trace of it whatsoever. It obviously won't be there, and I'm still not happy with YouTube about that. I just haven't figured out how I want to respond. But anyway, I think it's on Twitch too, Gene. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't remember. I think it is. It's on the Independence Gang Twitch channel as well, Gene. So anyway, have a great night, everybody. I'm going to look into that, Gene, but we're completely deleted. I don't think there's a recovery. I don't think that we're going to get a chance to get it back, but I'll check that out. I'll look for that and check it out. Thank you. I hope everybody has a great night, and I will see. Like I said, if we're talking about America's Lunchroom, I'll see you tomorrow. If we are talking about Independence Gang, tomorrow night we should have that for you. So. I'm stalling here because I need to get something ready for outro. Sorry, I wasn't ready for this. Is this the one? I guess this is the one. All right, everybody have a great night. We'll see you.